All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Grant McGaw, and I'm the CEO of Five Star BDM. And it is my pleasure to host today's webinar Strategic Technology Leadership from Silicon Valley to Global Enterprises. And today we will dive into the latest insights on building scalable architecture with AI and IoT integration. And we will also uncover how strategic tech leadership can drive innovation, maximize ROI, and position your organization for long term success. And we are fortunate to have two industry leaders with us Tal Milburn, an experienced AI technologist who will start with a keynote on integrating AI and IoT into scalable architectures. And Tal is a seasoned AI technologist and strategist advisor with over 3 decades of experience in Silicon Valley. And he has led global enterprise architecture initiatives at companies like Cisco and Visa, where he oversaw significant technology integrations and acquisitions. And as the founder of an IoT healthcare startup, he successfully exited in 2019 and is now an active AI advisor, investor, and mentor, sharing his deep expertise in AI and IoT and tech innovation with enterprises and startups alike. So, following his insights, we will transition to a panel. And in that panel, we'll have Ronak Shah, CEO of Agile Infoways, who will focus on practical strategies to leverage technology for growth and innovation. Now, Ronak is a leading IT solutions provider specializing in software development, DevOps, and multi-platform integrations. So I will not keep you holding. We'll go ahead and introduce Mr. Tal Milburn. We'll give you the mic. Welcome, Tal.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Excellent, excellent. And Ronak, you'd like to say hi to the audience?
Hello, hi everybody.
All right, all right. We're going to give you the floor, and then we will rejoin in about 20 minutes or so.
Okay. So today I'm going to talk about these exciting times that we're in. Exciting because the technologies that are in front of us, both as personal citizens and as companies, is really unprecedented. We have gone through an accelerating curve of new technologies, and some would portend that the technologies in front of us, particularly AI, is probably the most impactful technology in history. We have had for the last 30 years very impactful technologies. We had the internet introduced in the 90s. We had mobile, we had social, and now we have AI. And AI is going to transform everything that we do. So you want to be a part of that, both personally and as part of your company. Now, technologies that matter are frequently disruptive. So they are not going to be something that is business as usual. And so it requires a concerted effort to really understand it, to embrace it, and then transform yourself and or your company as a result of it. Now, as you evaluate these technologies for your company, you want to look in the best interest of all stakeholders. And your stakeholders include you, your colleagues, your investors, and your customers. And all of those stakeholders have various care abouts, needs, and also concerns. And you want to be able to address all of those. So we will briefly talk about AI and AI IoT. And we'll talk about organizational change management for a few minutes, which is how you get organizations to change. So if there's buzz, it's worth looking into. So the first thing you want to do for both IoT and for AI is become informed. And I contrast that term informed from educated. So educated is, if you want to be a practitioner, if you want to really be a change agent, you will need to be educated about these particular technologies. But at a minimum, you need to stay informed. And informed simply means that you know what is current, what you should care about, what you should ignore, and what the impact is to those around you. So let's define those technologies. So let's talk about IoT first. IoT has actually been around for decades. It's just had different names. Back in the day, in the 1980s, I was happy to have worked for a couple of systems integration companies to do factory automation. And in those days, in the 80s, when we were automating factories at Ford and General Motors, we were calling that automation. But it is really about the same thing. But there are two things that define IoT. The first thing is that it is connected to the network, usually the internet. The second thing is that it doesn't have a traditional user interface. So what's an example of IoT? That smart parking meter that you see when you park your car on the street, the parking garage at the airport that tells you when there are parking spaces available, the ATM, all of these are various forms of IoT. And in fact, there are probably more IoT devices on the planet as we speak than there are desktops and laptops being connected to the internet. It is everywhere around you. So it is everything from the traffic lights now, like the city of Boca Raton, for example, is the most automated traffic system in the country. It has cameras on every single intersection and is able to adaptively control the lights. So we've defined IoT as having connection to the internet and in a non-traditional user interface. I would then subdivide it into three particular categories. We have residential, commercial, and industrial. So residential, sometimes we call those smart homes. And more you will see things built in, particularly in new construction. You will see things like HVAC control, lighting control, maybe whole house sound, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot in that. And I personally love smart homes. I have a smart home. The second one is commercial. And if you go to a mall today, there's an amazing amount of automation of technology involved in keeping everything going, whether it's the lights in that mall, or you're talking about an office building controlling the lights, the HVAC system, the safety systems, et cetera, et cetera. And then we have industrial. And industrial is everything from the factory to the oil well. And every one of these is important. So that's IoT. I won't spend much more time on that. So let's talk about AI. So AI, when most people think of AI today, they think of ChatGPT or something like that. Well, in fact, that's only one of two primary types of AI. The first type of AI is what we call analytical or predictive AI. And if you've ever shopped online in the last 5 years, you're dealing with AI because it's the one that's promoting particular things for you. It's making suggestions. It is looking for fraud. If you go on social, whether it's WhatsApp or you're going on Facebook or anything else, the order of the material that you're seeing is all done with AI. So this is all behind the scenes. We call that analytical or predictive AI. The one that's really gotten buzz is generative AI. That's when AI produces artwork. It can do conversations. It can do music. And in fact, one of the most amazing applications to me is Suno. It can create beautiful works of art, of music, and with nothing more than some words. So at the high level state, but there are some drawbacks to these technologies as they stand today. You have to be careful in deployment. Well, first of all, as your company, are you going to be an AI enhanced company or an AI enabled company? What is the difference between those two? AI enhanced simply means you are running a business that without AI, you could still run that business. You're simply making it better with AI. AI enabled, there are new business models now that could not exist without AI. And we call that AI enabled. And so when we look as investors, we look at those two particular categories, and they are we look at them very, very differently. But ask yourself, do you want to be AI enabled or AI enhanced? Now, it's not all perfect at this point. We are in process, even though it is completely amazing. AI is not a computer. It is not 100% precise. It's not a calculator. And so it has a tendency to make some mistakes. We sometimes call those hallucinations when it comes to generative AI. So it can generate some really wonderful stuff, but some stuff is not going to be so beautiful. We can take care of that in technology in the background, but it's something that's the current state of the technology. So that's not to say that you shouldn't embrace it. That is something that we're all working on as an industry, and we will get past that. So the implication is that for the technology that we have today, that there is some impact to the workforce that is inevitably going to come. When AI first was talked about decades ago, most people assumed that AI would be taking over some very rote jobs, things that were unskilled, for example. Well, as it turns out, AI kind of surprised us. AI started taking over creative jobs, high-skilled work. And so it's actually started at the other end of the spectrum that we didn't think computers would ever reach. The creativity of photographs and of videos and of music. And then beyond this, the creative is the high-skilled work. And there are three industries that are really getting a big impact today and will continue to get an impact. The first one is legal. The second one is medical. And the third one is technical. Now, let me talk about technical, and we'll talk about the other two briefly. Today, I do programming all the time. And a year ago, I used to actually write programs. Today, my AI takes the first pass at writing programs. And then what I do is I just finish it off. So now it hasn't replaced me, but it has made me more productive. And it's made me more skilled because even though I understand Python programming, for example, I'm maybe not the world's greatest expert, but the AI is. And so it can get things started for me, tell me what I need to know, and actually not only educate me, but actually help do some of my work. It can also do some of the drudgery. I have a brother who is a developer, and he gets all of his test cases written by AI because he doesn't like doing that. So that's kind of where AI is today. So now, what do we do to get started? So let's talk about organizational change management. Organizational change management is a concept that came out of the Software Engineering Institute of Carnegie Mellon a few decades ago. And what they did is they looked to study very systematically how do organizations change, whether they are government bureaus or whether they're large enterprises or even medium enterprises. And that's called OCM, Organizational Change Management. So they've discovered that there are a handful of things that you need to look at if you are going to make some change in a large enterprise or organization, simply because the rules are different when you're dealing with something so large. The first thing that you need to do, let's say you want to introduce AI into your company. You want to introduce IoT into your company. The first thing you need to do is find sponsorship. This means that it needs to have the visibility and the buy-in of senior management, okay? Because it's not going to happen if you don't have that. And more specifically, there needs to be time and priority allocated to this within your enterprise. And there needs to be a reasonable amount of money or resources available in your enterprise to do this. So step one in organizational change management is to have sponsorship. Okay. Number two is that you need to find or make yourself a committed change agent. A change agent is the one who will make this thing happen. We don't know necessarily what you will have to do to make it happen. It could be that you need to have sessions of communication. You need to get people to talk together. You need to help educate people and yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So without getting into the detail, you need to find out who are the people who are going to be responsible for making the change within the enterprise under the sponsorship of senior management. So we call that a committed change agent. And you may very well be that person or part of that group. Okay, so that's number two. Number three, and this is not to be underestimated, is you need to have the people who are impacted participate in the process. Okay, you don't make change onto people, you involve people in that particular change. So now that's sometimes that's kind of a bumpy ride, because depending on your organization, you may have people who are reluctant for change, or are afraid of change, or don't understand the change. And so part of your job as a committed change agent is to help explain what it is, why it's important, and how they can participate, and also to listen. So sometimes there can be some very legitimate concerns, some good ideas, and just people want to be able to talk and say, I'm concerned, I don't know what this means about my job, et cetera, et cetera. So need to involve those that are impacted. Okay, so that's your number three. And number four, and this is the only one of the four you cannot change, the change history of your organization is very important in predicting the future. If historically your company does not like to change, and sometimes that's based on your industry. For example, the oil and gas industry tends to not like to change as much. Again, it's a stereotype, whereas financial services tends to like to change, and everything in between. But again, these are stereotypes. And what you need to do is understand that it is true or not true, and why is it true? What was it that you tried to change before that was not effective? And maybe you can try to address that so that you don't have that repeated again. So the change history, again, it is what it is. Your job is to understand it and incorporate it in your other plans. Okay, so in the last 3 minutes, let me just kind of recap what we've been talking about. So the technologies that matter the most are frequently disruptive. By definition, they are disruptive. Okay, you want to understand what is in the best interest of all stakeholders, however, in deciding that you will indeed push for and make change happening within your organization. Two technologies which are pervasive and transformational that you should consider strongly is Internet of Things, IoT, as well as AI, particularly AI, because it will be transformative. It is here to stay. It's not without its issues, but we are working through, as an industry, we're working through each of those issues. But even if it never changed or improved from here, it still made some big impact into many industries. So particularly the high skilled industries and creative ones. And lastly, in order to make things happen in your company, apply the principles of organizational change management. In particular, make sure you have sponsorship within your organization in order to make some change happen, which means you need to have a reason why, so that you can get the priority and the resources available. Number two, find or make yourself a committed change agent to make this thing happen. Number three is get the people who are impacted by the change participating, or at least some meaningful sample of the people that are impacted participating in the change. Okay. And number four, understand your change history and what that means in terms of how you do your planning going forward. And so that is all of my opening remarks, and I think we're right on time.
I think you're beautifully on time. I think a lot of our guests understood that they would be in a workshop today, and not just listening to your typical webinar. There's definitely some knowledge transfer that is taking shape, and I definitely encourage the audience to comment. Go ahead and type your comments into whatever platform that you're listening to, so we can get them answered by Tal and Ronak. We've got a few that are coming in, but I want to make sure the audience is aware that they can type in some questions that they may have that we can go ahead and get them answered. So before we go to Ronak, Tal, there was one other question, and you touched on this, that stakeholder engagement, in your current keynote. Now, could you expand on the strategies that you've seen that work well in large enterprises? Because you've had experience in Visa, you've had experience at Cisco. How do you get buy-in from diverse stakeholders?
Well, that's a great question. First of all, as a change agent, particularly in a large enterprise, step one is to go find the influencers within the organization. There are always people within various functions in the company who other people listen to. So you want to go find those people and talk to those people first. Okay, number one. Okay, this was before we had the term influencer, but these are influencers within a company. So that's number one. Number two is one of the biggest questions that comes up in people's mind, whether they actually use the term or not, is why? Why do this? Before you even get to the what or the how, the who, the when or where, you've got to have the why, because otherwise people don't pay attention. So, in order to be competitive, in order to follow the changes in our industry, et cetera, you need to understand what is your motivation. If it's just a shiny new object, it won't ever really take off. But if you have a compelling reason about why this change or this technology will work, then that's the first thing people need to hear. Once they understand the why, then they can start getting into the how, the whats, and the other interrogatives.
Very well said. I love that. You've got to understand the why. Now, Ronak, you've worked with both the very large enterprises as well as what we call traditional SMB, small and mid-sized businesses. So from your experience, what are the most significant communication challenges that you faced when you're talking to these stakeholders? And then how do you navigate to ensure a successful project outcome?
Yeah, thank you, Grant, for that question. It's kind of unique. We see a large enterprises and the small to medium sizes businesses, which is called SMBs. They both present kind of a unique communication challenges. Like what we have seen is the diverse stakeholders expectations. So large enterprise and SMBs, they often have a different priorities. So enterprise, like larger clients, they usually focus more on scalability, compliance, and security. While the small companies, they might prioritize more about the cost effectiveness, speed, and that level of flexibility. And what we have seen is when we take these kind of solutions to these companies, we see a different level of knowledge there. Like large enterprise, they really expect the really technical depth of the solution that we are proposing. And the SMB companies, they wanted to have a generalist view, and they prefer more simplicity. So, the way we do is we do like kind of a conduct a stakeholder analysis. We try to understand their needs, their priorities of the different stakeholders, and then we customize the communication. So for enterprise client, we focus on more on strategic alignment and long-term benefits. While for SMBs, we highlight on immediate value and the cost efficiency. And we usually use the inclusive language. So when we present something to this enterprise or small clients, we try to avoid the technical jargons right there. We ensure that the explanations that we are giving to them is very clear and accessible to everybody. But the decision-making process is absolutely different in both level. Like in the large enterprise, the decision-making process is very slow because it goes through multiple layers of approval, where in SMBs, it's much faster because they have an involvement from the top executives itself. So after doing this process, how do we ensure as a company that the project that we're going to do for them would have a successful outcome? So we take a number of different steps. Like right from the beginning, we try to define the very clear project scope. We explain them what is going to be in the scope and out of the scope. We set SMART goals. So these SMART goals are actually goals which are measurable, achievable, and kind of a relevant goals with their business alignment. Then we design the strong governance and leadership team. So it's very important to establish a governance structure that includes the steering committee or the project board. And very important part what we have seen is in large enterprise we have to address their geographical and cultural difference, because they may have offices in America, Europe, Asia, or wherever, and there are different people that come from different culture. So we have to also adapt the communication style which fits to that culture. So it's very, very important to addressing these concerns when we are dealing with different culture people from different parts of the world. Apart from that, there's a lot of detailed planning and risk management is required. So we develop a very detailed project plan that includes the timelines, milestones, resources, budgets, dependencies, and then we have to have a risk management design. So we identify the potential risk ahead of time, and we develop the mitigation strategies as well. And as Tall mentioned, the change management and the training, that is very, very important. You have to have a very comprehensive change management plan, and then you need to support when you're making all this whole change in the organization. You need to train those people and bring them up to the speed. And as we go across the whole project implementation, we use dashboards, status reports, different types of, it's called a progress reporting, the way we do it. So it's easily they would be able to understand the achievements or the milestones that we are meeting. And we also use KPIs, the key performance indicators, which actually measures the project performance. And there is also feedback mechanism. We take a lot of feedback from the stakeholders, and as we progress, we make the changes into the implementation based on the feedback that we receive. And then after, we have a post implementation review, and then based on the post implementation review, we continuously do improvement into the process in our company as well for the next upcoming project.
Man, that's a lot of attention to detail and getting a lot of people on board and involved. And I like how you look at different situations, depending if it's a very large enterprise or an SMB, that you have different approaches. I think the audience can learn from that. That it's not a one size fits all. It's very customized. It's very personalized. And taking all that in. Now, I would swing this other question back over to Tall, because the one thing that I hadn't heard yet, but I heard a little bit about it, but we all know this is a key thing, especially as an angel investor. You kind of alluded to how you look at different projects that are AI, enabled or AI enhanced. When you're looking at the financial considerations as a key hurdle, in the adoption of the technology, how can technology leaders make a compelling case for ROI when proposing new tech investments like AI and IoT?
Yeah. So particularly, okay, we'll focus on kind of the smaller companies, the startups. Well, first of all, every company, whether you're a startup, SMB, or an enterprise, you should be at least aware of what's going on with regard to these technologies. So when it comes to a startup, the first thing as an investor that I would recommend is don't talk about AI unless it's legitimate. First of all, I look at about 80 pitches a month, and about a third of them come across as AI, and some of them actually are AI. So there's a tendency, if there's a little bit of AI, you put it in there. So, what you want to do always when talking with investors is to be as fact-based as possible. Talk about your business and the business problem it solves. If you can do it better with AI, make that part of the pitch, okay? And so therein lies the answer. If it can be better as a result of AI, then you probably want to do it. Now, remember, you don't always have to build AI, okay? there are now more and more products, for example, for customer service chatting that you can buy off the shelf. There's no reason to build your own chatbot, okay, unless you have specific unique requirements. So wherever it's possible, yes, you can take things off the shelf, and where it is not supportive of the business or overhead in the business, but core to your business, then maybe that's where you want to differentiate by having something that's custom built. Okay, there is a term sometimes called core and context. Core is the primary reason for your business. Context is everything that supports it. Okay, what makes you win, what makes you competitive, what makes you profitable is the core. So you pay attention to what it is that's core to your business and what is support to your business. Don't build it if you don't have to, okay? Because you're not going to do anything that really drives the business from a competitive perspective. So there's a way of talking about it. There's a way of actually implementing it. Now, again, last thing I'll say is, again, there's both analytical and generative. Sometimes you want to be able to analyze all your operational data all the time. I don't know of any business that somebody has presented to me in the last 2 years that didn't have some kind of operations that could benefit from some AI or analytics to study, unless it's a very low volume business. You're selling airplanes. Okay, even then, I could argue that being able to understand patterns in sales, patterns in inventory, those things, and that's analytical AI, I can see that there is a good reason to do that. Now, if you're limited on funds, don't go off spending a lot of money on enhancing AI, okay, until it can really make a difference. If it is enabling AI, then you probably need to spend those early startup funds in order to bring your product to market, because your product, by definition, doesn't exist without the AI. So,
Man, very good insight and approaches from a financial perspective. Now, Rona, thinking about all the things we just talked about, because it's very complex in the tech environment. So, from your experience, how do you approach aligning the IT strategy with the overall, business goal when dealing with all this diversity and sometimes conflicting stakeholder priorities? And do you have any examples that you can elaborate on from a story that you've had yourself and had to overcome?
Sure. Yeah. So, not sometimes, for I think pretty much every time we see a conflicting stakeholders' priorities from every organization that we work with, and this requires kind of a very structured and adaptive approach, because now you're dealing with a lot of different departments and you need to bring everybody on the same page to make things happen, and we usually take different approach for that. So, most important part is understanding their business goals and stakeholders priorities. So we kind of engage into the strategic conversations. So we do a lot of in-depth discussions with key stakeholders. We understand their goals, their concerns, or their priorities, and also we identify the conflicting priorities early across the different departments. We recognize them on the early stage, and we try to basically address them with more proactive management and resolution. And we use something called we kind of develop a unified IT strategy for that. So we try to balance their short-term needs and long-term goals. So both needs to be addressed when you're speaking to the stakeholders. So we design the IT strategy which would address the immediate business needs, and at the same time we also consider their future growth and innovation. And at the same time we try to do a very open communication and collaboration approach. So we try to communicate the IT strategy very clearly with the stakeholders and show them how this will align with their business goals. And then we come with the collaborative decision making process. So we involve different stakeholders in the decision making process for the whole implementation plan. And for that purpose, we in fact use data matrix, and we show them the data and matrix to demonstrate like how IT initiative will really impact their business outcomes. And we used evidence-based approach. We show them the evidence that this is how it's gonna impact their overall business goal. So, and then after we have a regular performance reviews, we have reviews of their IT initiative, assess their progress and impact on business goals. We use something called agile approach. The name of our company is Agile in 4 Ways, but it's very important to use the agile approach to the IT strategy, which really allows a full level of flexibility and quick adjustments as we progress. And there's another thing that we found very successful is called scenario planning. When we use the scenario planning, we are able to anticipate the potential challenges and we develop these strategies to address them. So this kind of proactive approach can help you navigate the whole implementation across different stakeholders much, much, much smoothly. So when you ask me for example, let me give you one example of one of the we have one of the large Fortune 500 client where we are doing a very custom solution implementation. The whole project was actually more about changing their operational efficiency and provide the better integration across different departments. So we did the same process. We did a lot of different strategic meetings with different stakeholders. Now if you talk about different departments like finance department, every department has different demands. Now how do you meet that? The finance department, they were focusing on cost control and they wanted a system to minimize the long-term expenses. And sales and marketing department, they wanted a feature that would enhance their customer relationship and they wanted to have the sales forecasting at the same time. Now, when we talk to the operations department, they wanted to focus on inventory management and supply chain process. And finally, when we talk to the IT department, they were more about the technical complexity that is going to cause and how we're going to integrate with their existing system. And, they wanted to make sure that this system is scalable enough, even if you have a huge workload or huge audience coming to the system. So we took different steps to address all those things. First important thing was we did a stakeholder alignment workshop. So we did a series of workshop with each department and we discussed their specific needs and their concerns. And then we developed a weighted scoring system. Now this weighted scoring system is based on the strategic value, the impact on the business operations, and the alignment with the overall business goals. And then we create the whole phase implementation plan. So definitely our first phase definitely is more focused on delivering the critical functionality first. That is very important. And then this and the subsequent phases, we address the other functionality that needs to be addressed. And then same way, we have a very strong communication system with the different departments. We gather a lot of the feedback as we are progressing. And it's very important part is what we have seen is the communication is very important along with all stakeholders. Otherwise you lose the momentum in the implementation phase. And we also we leverage a lot of data to demonstrate the benefits. We use data analytics to show them the benefits of this new implementation which is going on, how now the cost savings is coming up, what kind of efficiency improvement is going on, and what kind of customer satisfaction they would get by implementing this process. So there are a number of different things and strategies that we use when we try to align different stakeholders from different departments, and we try to get the success that way.
So important what you just talked, the communication and knowing your audience and knowing exactly what they need when they need it and having it evidence-based, factual. So it's not just an opinion. These are probable outcomes that you're going to achieve if we go in a direction, and then you get buy-in. So it's not like us versus you. It's like this is our project, not your project or my project. I like that. Now this next question comes directly from the audience, and when both of you have a chance to chime in, well, definitely we'll start with Tal first, but I think it applies to both of you. Now this comes from Dr. Hydrick Vesey. And he says, AI combined with IoT creates AIoT, allowing devices to analyze data and make decisions without human involvement. As smart devices advance, consumers will have more options for accessing information, and products will play a larger role in smart homes, industries, in cities. Consumer acceptance of AI is a critical concern globally. So, what do you think about AI IoT acceptance? Great
Sure.
question.
Yeah. So, there's a couple of ways of looking at it. One of the big drawbacks to a current state of AI is that it is very, very energy consuming. It uses a lot of energy, and it requires big computers and stuff like this. And the reason why I mentioned that is because one of the things that it needs to do in order to really progress, it's got to use less information, and it's got to go to the edge. And when it goes to the edge, instead of in the data centers, it goes onto the laptops and on the the devices out in the oil field and so forth and so on. Once AI goes to the edge, it's going to be a lot cheaper and require a lot less energy. Or you can see it the other way around. We can't do that at the edge until we make it cheaper and more efficient. Now, there are some specialized devices being created, like, for example, there's now a couple of laptops that have NPUs, neural processing units. And so there are some changes that are beginning to happen where we're pushing AI to the edge. And when we do that, it's really kind of commingles with IoT. And that's going to be critically important. By the way, that's also a safety issue because your information is not necessarily in the cloud that could be hacked. It's, it could be your personal information sitting on your laptop or on that device that's in the nuclear reactor or whatever the case may be. So there's a safety benefit as well. So we are seeing it getting pushed to the edge, and it's very powerful. Now, there's one other very emerging thing, which is analog computers. It's a very weird thing, and when most people hear that, they go, "What? Analog computers?" The idea is, if you think about like a Tesla, it has a lot of analog sensors, things like the speed and LiDAR and so forth and so on. It's converted to a digital, and then it goes back out to analog. Well, there's now research going on about why do we need to do that? Let's just keep it all analog instead of converting it. That's one of the ways we can save, cost and processing. So anyway, I think that's kind of interesting.
I think it's very interesting. What do you got to say, Ronald?
Yeah. So let me actually support this whole thing with the real world examples, and that we actually been doing a lot of implementation where these AI and IoT are working both together. So we are in fact implementing like in the healthcare space, we are designing a remote patient monitoring solution, that goes to the elderly patients where they are being monitored and watched. So we use all these IoT devices where we are taking their blood pressure, glucose monitor, and different measurements through these IoT devices. Now, these IoT devices are only able to take the measurement and send it to our system, but then we have AI integration where we actually monitor these overall changes into the patient's health during the day. Now we have set parameters that this is the limit for this patient. If it goes beyond that, there is an alert system that we have created into the management, the healthcare management company who actually are responsible to take care of the patient. So they get the alerts right away, and then we have a Uber Care integrated, which would go and look at the patient right away. But the AI and IoT are both working together. So as I said, in some of the industries it is still upcoming, but in a lot of industries it has been implemented. So another classic example of thing that we've been working on is the pill bottle. We get this yellow pill bottle from the pharmacies here, and the cap, we made that cap as an IoT enabled cap. So we actually monitor to see if when these pill bottles are given to the patients, if these medications that they're taking, are they taking on the time, are they missing the dose, or they are even overdosing. So we check the movements of how many times they open the pill bottle's cap, because cap is IoT enabled. And based on that, we perform the analysis that the patient has taken the medication on time, not on time. We alert their family members if they are missing the dosages or something like that. So much of AI integration is done with the IoT devices. So we have seen a lot of great acceptance in the industry because everybody wants to do that. And we live in the world where the whole families are staying in different parts of the world, so the loved ones really wanted to see how their parents or grandparents are doing, so it's been quite acceptable as an AI and IoT goes all together.
I love this. Real-time communication, real-time intelligence. One of my marching quotes that I've been on for the last year and a half, ever since generative AI has really hit the scene, is that we're moving away, or maybe with information technology, into intelligent technology, which is a whole new dimensional reality of how we've been utilizing information technology or traditional IT. So as Tal mentioned, a lot of people understand CPUs, what that is, and then we go to GPUs, and now we're talking about NPUs, which is a neural processing unit. This is explosive and multi-dimensional in how it will completely change how we're doing certain things today, which it will be like going backward into utilizing, disk instead of what we're doing now for storage devices, where you call flash arrays or some of that. Not to go, technically, too technical, but the advancement in the technologies should be rapid. So my question to Tal is this: and in the context of a rapidly evolving technological landscape that I just kind of talked about, what strategies would you recommend for maintaining flexibility and scalability while driving innovation?
Yeah. So just to confirm what you said, which is, yes, technology, it continues to accelerate. Now, to make it even a little bit more challenging, that acceleration is non-linear. Okay. So, which I guess is the same thing as acceleration, but technology tends to happen in bits and spurts. And so we could have an introduction in 1 year's time of some new AI thing that will blow everybody away. I'm no longer surprised when there's this huge change in technology, and you shouldn't be either. So not only is technology accelerating, but it is going to be coming in bits and spurts. So you may have a dramatic announcement. I mean, if you look at OpenAI, it's the fastest growing company in history, okay, in terms of the valuation. So, so that is something you should be prepared for. I suggest that there are 3 things that you should do as an individual and as a participant of your company: inform, discern, and participate. Now, let me describe those. Informed, stay informed about what's going on with what you're hearing a buzz about. So you're hearing about generative AI or chatting or prediction or whatever these technologies are. Dig into it. But that brings me to the second one, which is discern. If you go to YouTube and type in AI, oh my goodness, you will get so many different things pop up, some of which is clickbait, to be honest. So don't believe everything that you read. You have to have a discerning eye. And if there's one important skill to acquire or to hone over the next few years, is to discern about what is factual. If something provides an emotion in order to click, be careful of that, because you need to discern, okay? Otherwise, you're going to have more anxiety and it's going to be counterproductive. And then the third thing is participate. One of the interesting things about AI, unlike most other technologies that happened before it, with it, maybe the exception of social, is that everybody can participate in this. So even if you're not technical, you can talk about ethics, you can talk about safety, you can talk about human impact, on one side, or you can talk about the technology and the math and the models and the hardware on the other side. So there's place to participate, and you should participate in this conversation, if you will, as a society. So inform, discern, and participate are my recommendations on staying current. But yes, we are in exciting, accelerating times.
And we are. And here's the going into that fear factor, the concerns now with AI on the scene. And just like we've seen in different ages, what they call like Industry 4.0, or before that, we had manufacturing, we've had agricultural changes. This is a leap in human experience. I want to ask this of Rono, because this comes in from Vicky Sharma. And her exact question or observation is this: hi, you are right about AI, but currently lots of employees lost their jobs due to companies using AI technology. And she hopes in the future AI will help to create jobs in the market. So, Rono, as a business owner and also interacting with many companies on a global scale, how would you answer Vicky's concerns?
Yeah, and it's kind of a right question at this point of time where we see a lot of innovations are happening. As Tall mentioned, AI is able to create even coding. Like we were thinking that AI will take over small factory jobs or small automation here and there, but now AI is actually taking over on creative side. It can create music, it can create even small movie clips, it can do artwork, it can even do the coding for you, like technical coding. So we have the same feeling, but at the same time, look at the history of last 20 or 30 years. Haven't we gone through innovation phases? Okay, the internet came, and when the internet came, a lot of the businesses started their e-commerce businesses, right? What was that mean? That okay, if the Walmart is going to win the world or Target is going to win the world, what would the smaller businesses would do, right? But then smaller businesses got the support of this whole social media place, where they were also started focusing on their marketing strategy, and everybody is able to get the pie of their business as of now as well. Yeah, there are definitely, we see some ups and downs, but there is always something that the support model comes in. If you look at the back in 2000, we used to buy that small camcorders, the movie cameras, and we were, wherever we go in the world, everyone would have, if you go to Niagara Falls, everybody's holding in their hand. What happened to that? Everything was replaced by the mobile phones. But what happened to those companies who were making them? They took an adaptive step and they moved into a technology of something which would support the mobile phones. So it's not that everybody, yes, the first 1 2 3 years everybody was scared that what we gonna do. But if they do not adopt the newer style of technology or business, they would definitely be left out. So I would say that yes, we may see job losses now, but it's time for us as in humans to adapt with the newer skills, get up to the speed. The world is changed. It's not that you learn something in school or college that's going to stay with you forever. You have to learn every single day. If you keep yourself up to date into the market with the newer skill sets, soft skills, whatever, you will always have a job. So I'm sure there would be a job loss, but eventually it will be backfilled with number of different opportunities.
Well stated. Well stated. We do move forward. Look at all the digital jobs that have been created because of the internet age and what we're doing. Even the creators we're talking about that are making music, or they're making websites, or they're making different things. Those jobs did not exist 20 years ago or whatever it might be. So a lot of things have changed. I want to get final thoughts from Tal as we begin to wrap up.
Well, I guess my final thoughts would be is it's here to stay. And I would use my 3 words again, which is inform, discern, and participate. This is, to me, a remarkable time, an absolutely remarkable time of things that are happening that I didn't think would happen in my lifetime. And kind of to Arnok's previous statement, when photography came out, it did not replace painting. It replaced some painting, but we still have oil paintings, okay? And they fetch a lot of money, okay? Well, you're going to have AI generated images. It's not going to replace photographs. Just if you've had a wedding in the last 5 years, you know that's very expensive, right? These people are making good money. So it's really adding to the whole palette of human ingenuity, of human creation. And it's a really exciting time. So I would say embrace, but to use the skills that you need to have most important are not necessarily the AI skills and the IoT skills. Those are important. The more important skills are those of being able to discern and to learn and to communicate. All those things are skills that will be valuable for the rest of your life, no matter what happens in terms of technology.
Wow, man, well stated, well stated. I got this question in. It actually came in on my mobile device. And this question is for Ronald Shaw. And it says there are a lot of software engineering firms somewhat similar to Agile InfoWays, doing AI, ML, some custom applications. But why have you chosen to differentiate yourself by coming and doing a different webinar series for 2024? And how has that helped you and your company?
That's a great question from whoever it came from. So this is all about giving the right in the technology knowledge and the innovations which are happening in the world. So yes, I run a software company. We do huge implementation with small to mid-size and enterprise level client, but I do not know every single thing. That's why we bring like people like Tall, who is an industry expert with 3 or 4 decades of experience and who are actually a hands-on coder as of now, even. So he's been like Tall. Take an example. He looks at it 80 pitches every month. Like, what is that? So he knows what's happening in the industry. Similarly, we brought CIO from Broward Health and so many other bigger companies, CEOs and CIOs come to our show every month, and that's learning lessons for even me. I'm also learning while they're talking, and I'm getting a precious 1 hour of time to interact with the top level industry people to understand what are the processes they are implementing, and maybe if I can learn something to do something better and give it to my clients. So at the same time, it benefits us, but at the same time, it benefits to the audience. And for our company, we have thousands of followers across different channels. Same for my LinkedIn page as well. So we want to make sure that my customers gain a value out of this, because I have a number of different customers, different stage. And if they hear something, if they like something, they may ask more detail that, hey, you guys have done something. Would it really benefit to my company or not? And based on that, we do discussion, we do the implementation. So definitely indirectly, there is a lot of other things happens from the webinar where it really gives and benefit to our customers and our viewers and our listeners.
Great answer. And I encourage the audience that there are a number of different webinars. There's probably about 8 or 9 that you can go to Agile InfoWays YouTube. Just go to YouTube, put in Agile InfoWays. A lot of these will come right up. You can learn a lot. This is the key differentiation that's occurring now, what I call the content creation age, where before information was very guarded. You didn't want to put out a lot of information about your services or possibly your products. You did, there's intellectual property, and people like, oh, I don't want to talk about certain things. We're at a time now that we have to share and share factual evidence-based knowledge. That's why you see a lot of use cases that are out there. You have case studies that are out there. They're demonstrating proof of outcomes. So when you have someone like a Paul come to your table and say, hey, I'm interested in investing in your company, he needs to do his due diligence in research. And that information has got to be readily available for him to take a look at and to make a informed decision. So when you come to the table, you can then have a discussion around how we can move the table forward, or the business forward, what you want to accomplish. So I want to thank both of you for coming on the show today. Encourage everyone to continue to tune into all these webinars. We have another one next month, so stay tuned, everybody. See you later. Good night.
Thank you, Charles. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you.